Hey, hi all, welcome back to the new video. So I think today we'll start with generation of computer. Yes, we'll start with generation of computer. So actually I'm trying to do this kind of video in two languages, one in Odia and another in English and Hindi, we can call it. Like combinedly we are studying. I think most of the things are completed last day about basic of computer. So today we'll start with generation of computer. See, one thing, generation in the sense, a period of time in which a drastic changes come into, that is called as a generation, we can call it. Like if we consider the time period of my grandfather, that generation, and my father's generation, and this is our generation. So some changes are going on, something going on in background, and it's actually giving in a form of huge changes, or we can call it as drastic changes towards the development we are moving, isn't it? The computer was available during my grandfather's time is totally different from today's generation, isn't it? So on the basis of that, like generation, computers are commonly classified into five generation. Okay, so first generation, the time period was 1940 to 1956, and at the time vacuum tubes were used as a technology. Okay, so technology was used as vacuum tubes for circuitry, magnetic drums for memory were used. Then programming language were using, like at the time the programming language was used as a machine language. I have told you, I think. Machine language is what, like all the code and all will be written in binary format, means 0 and 1 format, whole code will be written. Okay, then size was very large, just like a room. Can you just imagine how much bigger the computer would be at the time? It was very very large, and it was uh, often took off entire rooms. It was almost like a room. Okay, so speed was very slow because firstly they have developed the computer, so definitely if we do something for the first time, maybe some errors would be there, or some lack of things would be there. So time to time we update our errors, isn't it? Timely we correct our mistakes, we learn something, we develop something, isn't it? So that's the actual funda. Then speed was very slow, and it generate a lot of heat and often malfunctions. See, it was developed for the first time, and it was consuming a lot of electricity, so that's why it was generating a lot of heat also. And it often provides some malfunctions. That means, suppose we are giving some instruction to a fresher, maybe the fresher do some mistake. It's a common thing. So kindly that way, computer was also doing some malfunctions at that time, in the time of 1940 to 1956. For example, if we consider like NIC, UNIVAC, etc., at the time the computer was used for scientific calculations, military, in military also they were using computers, and basic business task also. Okay, in second generation, the time period was from 1956 to 1963, and instead of vacuum tubes, they used transistors. Okay, so the technology used was transistors replaced by vacuum tubes. Programming language, in this generation, a couple of language came into forward, as assembly language, early high level language. Okay, um, because time is moving on, isn't it? Time is moving on, and some develop actually coming into the picture. The size was smaller than the what first generation, obvious, because they were growing towards development, and they were trying to learn something from their mistakes. Okay, and definitely the size was smaller than the first one, and it was more efficient, energy efficient, okay, than first one. Because in first one, what, it was large in size, it was just consuming a lot of electricity, so that's why it was producing heat. So they felt that no, these are the disadvantages and we have to do something better than this. So that's why they just make it smaller, they made it more energy efficient than first generation, and the speed was faster than the first generation, and it was more reliable in the sense what, like rely, which is able to rely actually from one, like reliable in the sense what, like it's more user friendly it become. And it's also like as the size was smaller, then some changes made and they do it in a better way. For example, what, IBM 14.1, and another example was IBM 7090, okay. They use for business, universities and government also use this generation computer. Then the third generation computer, the timing from 1964 to 1971, and they use integrated circuit or IC instead of that transistor. They just move towards development, and they try to neglect such things which were disadvantages in first and second generation, okay. ICs replaced individual transistor. Programming language like high level language become more common, and size much smaller and much powerful. Speed was even faster and more reliable. For okay, reliable in the sense it can run for a long time, okay. It become more reliable in the sense it can run up to the max time, or it's going to better, and it can exist for more time, we can call it. For example, like IBM system 360, and use is word like widespread in business and scientific applications. Fourth generation, the time period was from 1971 to present, like nowadays also we are using this. Here microprocessors are used, technology like microprocessor, which is consist of thousands of ICs on a single silicon plate. Size was very compact, emergence of personal computer, PCs was developed in this generation. Speed like greatly increased, low cost and high efficiency. The cost, the cost become very low, and it become very highly efficient. For example, like Intel 4004, IBM PC, Apple Macintosh, etc. For example, business, education, personal use, multimedia, networking, they use all for these purposes. Fifth generation computer like present and beyond means future. Artificial intelligence, okay, AI. Like now the world is almost crazy for this term, artificial intelligence. Technology based on AI, machine learning, quantum computing, and size and speed extremely powerful and compact. Key features like voice recognition, robotics, natural language processing, like NLP we are calling it as, it's a very famous one. Example, AI based system like Siri, ChatGPT, IBM Watson, okay. We are telling like hey Siri, can you please play this music. We are also using use smart devices, decision making systems, medical diagnosis, in almost like all fields we are trying to use computers nowadays, isn't it? I think this is enough about basic of computer, and if you really want to enhance your knowledge, you can also follow to internet. But according to me, this much is very very basic about computers, and you should at least learn this much, okay. You can go beyond, but I can tell you. uh, okay, so I think that's all for today's video. Thank you.